Hi, I'm Ben Smith from Politico.com, and I am joined in this Blogging Heads by Matt Cooper, the Washington editor of Condé Nast Portfolio, who writes their Capital blog and is also a George Carlin aficionado.
I don't know about that, Ben, but I'm like a lot of people. I was surprised and I was sad to hear this morning that he died at 71. Thought there was a very nice appreciation of him by Richard Zoglin, my old colleague at Time Magazine, who's written a book about comedy in the 70s, and he notes that Carlin was not only an innovator but just the incredible pivot he did in his life. He was very much a straight man and a guy with skinny ties and short hair who appeared on Ed Sullivan, and then did such an incredible pivot into the counterculture that he was banned from The Tonight Show for a long time. And then eventually, like all things radical in America, he became more beloved than marginal, and the author of bestsellers and very much a mainstream figure. At the same time, an edgy one. So, but above all, funny.
Yes. Above all, I don't know. Not sure if who the presidential comedian is going to be.
It's hard to say. I don't.
Chris Rock
you'd have.
Obama quoted Chris Rock. So.
Well, I saw Chris Rock. Yeah, I saw Chris Rock in Washington a while ago, and he's good. But it's funny. He was a little soft on Obama. There's sort of. He's pro. I shouldn't say obviously, but he is pro, and there's just I don't know. I don't know if he'll be the great critic, if there's
right.
President Obama. Be interested to see.
So Obama does like Chris Rock routines in his parenting, his fatherhood stuff. And in his big fatherhood speech in Chicago a couple weeks ago, he did a couple Chris Rock riffs on 8th grade graduations and things like that.
That's true. But there's nothing more corrupting for a comedian than being close
it's true.
to power. You don't want to be, Von Meter.
It's a guarantee that he's going to be unfunny, isn't it?
Right.
It's going to ruin his career. Wow.
Yeah, I think he's better off with McCain. It could be better for a Dennis Miller comeback if we have President Obama.
Anything's possible.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what's going on in the campaigns right now. We're in this, this used to be a period where candidates actually took little vacations before the conventions, but they're in full throttle now. Even
when was the last vacation? Did Kerry and Bush take vacations?
I think they took at least little ones. I seem to think as the primaries wound down. And, I don't want to date myself, but, I can remember back to the long Dukakis vacation, which probably is what deters everyone from ever taking one again. And, Jimmy Carter and the press corps camped out in planes during the summer of '76. So, there used to be at least a little bit of a break in the cycle, but no more. I don't know. What do you... obviously, gas prices are on the minds of the candidates and Americans as they continue to go up. What's your sense of what's going on with that with the candidates?
I mean, they're going in very different directions. McCain's trying to say, here's some things we can do to, I'm going to address this with these specific things, drilling offshore, and he's talked on and off about lifting the federal gas tax. Obama is doing what he did in the primary, which is saying those are gimmicks. That's not going to work, and we need to move to sustainable energy in the long term. Which the part of that is, I think, sorry folks, high gas prices are here to stay, basically.
Right.
Which he hasn't quite said outright, but I don't really see a different answer coming from him.
Right. I mean, there's a certain. It seems to me McCain does have a pretty good argument that he is at least for trying to get more sources. He's pro-nuclear, he's pro-drilling. I mean, say what you will about the environmental impact, and there's a lot to be said about it, but he's at least for, just trying to get more energy. Whereas the Obama stuff all, to me, feels very ethereal. It's like invest more money in wind and solar and take away some Exxon tax breaks. But it seems to me, I don't see where the Obama plan gets you.
Though I think we're just screwed here, right? I mean, no economists really seem to think that any of these things bring gas down in the short term. like the offshore drilling is like a 10-year investment, and the boats are too expensive, the rigs are too expensive, and I mean,
Right.
it doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like there's actually a real solution here, right? I mean, has anybody proposed one that would take more than like a nickel or a dime off the price tomorrow?
Definitely nothing tomorrow, but I think that I do think the pro-nuclear argument and the idea of trying to make America more like France, which famously gets a much larger percentage of its energy from nukes than we do, is is at least I think a compelling argument the McCain folks could work with. They seem a little too blunderbuss to quite make it coherently.
It's funny in the primary, Obama actually was the most pro-nuclear of the candidates. He got in a bit of trouble for refusing to rule it out and saying he was sort of open-minded on nuclear, because obviously the plus being no emissions. But now he's maybe he's been asked, but I haven't seen it. I think he's just sort of allowed McCain to hammer that a little, but not really engage one way or the other. I mean, and the thing is, it's not popular, nuclear. I mean, and you can tell because when McCain did his big energy ad, he had windmills, and he had oceans, and he had birds, and there were no big, what do you call those things? Those big nuclear smokestacks. There were none of those in the ad.
Right. No, that's true. That's true. I guess this is also the fallout of having a Nevada caucus. So to speak.
In
the process, because, of course, famously, they've got their storage site at Winnemucca that never got built, and it's a very anti-nuclear state. So, we'll give that one to Obama, at least on the politics of it. Although I think intellectually McCain's got a sort of stronger case.
Yeah, what I wonder, Obama in Indiana and in North Carolina, put this ad in the air that basically said Hillary Clinton is offering you this cheap political stunt. And I'm not sure, who knows what worked. It didn't not work. Like, her gas tax message didn't really work in the Democratic primary. Didn't change the way things were headed. And I think they think that worked and are going to do it again, basically. And it's an unusual thing to do, to take this bread and butter issue and instead of really engaging it, say, my opponent, basically sort of say this is typical politics from my opponent, which of course, I mean, for better or for worse, it is typical politics, but typical politics is usually about, like, addressing this thing that's really on people's minds directly.
Right. So. No, that's true. Well, moving on, there's been a lot of discussion about where the Jewish vote would go in this election. I mean, Jews tend to vote Democratic, but there's been concern that maybe older Jewish voters in Florida will be wary of Barack Obama. He's done quite well with Jewish voters in Illinois, but there's a feeling that McCain could make some inroads there. I don't know. What's your take?
I don't know. I was a summer intern at the Jewish Forward a long time ago, and I've been totally obsessed with this story ever since because it's so fractious. I mean, I feel like so for all the heat that is sort of expended on this story, every 4 years in the summer, there's a discussion of whether the Republicans will take the Jewish votes. Like, there's not that many Jewish votes in play. Like, 50%, maybe more, are just really solidly Democratic, aren't identifying themselves as Jewish voters, aren't thinking about Israel, are like liberal Democrats who happen to be Jewish. And then there's another, 10 or 15% who are Republicans who happen to be Jewish. So there's just this relatively small chunk of the community in the middle. But they are like retirees in Boca, and so that's who who are of McCain's generation. Although the thing is, I think that it's McCain might chip away, but the polls don't show him doing it. And and you hear a lot of conservative Jewish voices in the media that are more conservative than Jewish voters are on average. I mean, you hear from more. And so I guess I think it's still pretty tough for McCain. I mean, a lot like when Obama talks to Jewish audiences, he talks about like the civil rights movement and about African American Jewish New Yorkers going down and getting murdered in Mississippi, and that's something that Jewish retirees in Florida love. Like they were Jewish liberals in New York 30, 40 years ago, whose kids those were. So I just think on a range of domestic issues particularly, and if Obama plays it right on the fact that he's African American can be a plus.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to think you're right. I tend to think a lot of the, there have been a bunch of articles about elderly Jews in Florida. It seems to me their resistance is as much because they're older as because they're Jewish. I mean, just older voters in general have been a tougher block for Obama. And I think all the sort of, Obama's a Muslim, Obama's a, sleeper cell jihadist stuff is going to fade. And I think by the time, frankly, Jewish politicians from Robert Wexler in Florida, the congressman, and Ed Rendell, the governor in Philadelphia, I think by the time they work over Jews in their respective swing states, I think the vote will wind up pretty close to where it's been historically with Democrats. But Obama's got to do some work.
Yeah, what's interesting is he's worked it really hard. Like, there was a line of thinking from among, I guess, his supporters that said, you know what, like, the only Jewish vote that really matters is in Florida, and we're going to lose it. And we're going to lose Florida anyway, so screw it, Like, let's not pander let's not engage, let's not deal with Jewish issues. Let McCain... But and they decided not to do that, and instead are pushing it very hard. I think probably because it's like a proxy for security issues more generally.
Well, right, and also, they are concentrated in swing states, and
Well, not really, not other than Florida, New York and California are the.
Well, New York, California, you do have some. Pennsylvania. Obviously, money. In the past, the Jewish vote's been important because of contributions, but Obama so swamped the money raise that. That's less relevant.
It's few in Ohio, few in Nevada.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. It's I guess we'll both sort of give that one to Obama. Now on the campaign finance, I thought this was really a bad moment for Obama, but also for the media. It seems to me, Ben, that if the situations had been reversed, that if John McCain had been swamped with money and was leading in the race and just abandoned campaign finance, he would have taken a much bigger hit. Now, of course, that would have been because of his long history involved in campaign finance. But I think the same is true of Hillary Clinton had she been the nominee and seen some surge in money. I really think Obama got off pretty easy on this incredible reversal he's done. I don't know if you see it that way.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe I was just looking at our coverage. We covered it pretty intensely, and because basically the offense to the press was that he was going around telling us he was going to aggressively court this, and then did no such thing, and and meet with McCain and all this stuff, and telling the American people that, and it just didn't happen. So it's certainly she certainly deserved to be called on that. It's also a really hard story to tell, though, because it's not like taking public money is a sympathetic thing to do. Like, if you actually talk to voters about it and explain it, what he's doing is not taking $85 million in taxpayer money and spending it on television ads, which isn't it's not like its constituency is not the public at large. It's the New York Times editorial board. Yeah, so
I agree. I agree with that, but I really think had this been one of the other candidates, it would not have been a one.
So did you think he got a pass? I think there was wasn't there a lot of coverage on the nightly news? No.
Yeah, no, I think it got some pop, but it's just not a sustained kind of thing. When his surrogates went on the weekend shows, it was about by that time it was already topic number 4, and it had already been a couple of days. I really, it's trying to prove a negative, but I really think had it played out differently. And also, I personally don't think it reflects well on Obama. I think it's just, I do think there is a certain, McCain has done some incredible flip-flopping in this race, but, Obama's opened himself up with this, one day Jerusalem's the eternal undivided capital of Israel, next day it's not. One day public financing is Holy Grail, next day it's not. And, I think for someone who's campaigning as a new politician and hoping to transform politics, this has not been his finest hour.
Yeah, it's true. It's probably like there's this narrative that Hillary Clinton is ruthless and will do anything. So it would have been more evidence that Hillary Clinton is ruthless and will do anything. Right. But when Obama does it, it doesn't get cast that way. Although, none of these people have a lot of, you don't get to be the nominee of a party by having a lot of scruples. And one of the, and I guess maybe in a way that people who have covered him have basically now understand that he is not this utterly pure new figure above politics, which he's actually widely viewed as, and you can kind of forget that. Right. Because somebody, a smart Democratic operative this week, that day that happened, emailed me that that he's the Kennedy legacy is invoked a lot, but part of that legacy is not being hugely scrupulous about things like this. I mean,
Right.
and that's the democratic model in a way, stream out of which he comes, which is partly
Right.
about winning at all costs.
No, and I think to the degree that he is get labeled a politician, it's written as a good thing. Like, oh, he's not only dreamy and pious, he's tough, and he's a Chicago street fighter. I mean, I thought the
Totally.
David Brooks column this week, which was very critical of him for being a Chicago Paul. You know, basically a lot of Dems were passing it around to me saying, see?
Absolutely, and
he's tough
part of
enough.
the reason is you can't find any Democrats to criticize him. I mean, every day the newspaper is full of articles about John McCain with named and unnamed Republicans trashing him. And Obama
Right.
does something like this, and Democrats are thrilled.
Right. But you know, I don't think this is his finest hour, just leaving aside the politics of it. Well, there's always, you know, we're in this long interregnum now between the primaries and the convention, so obviously there's going to be a lot of speculation about vice presidential candidates. Who will the candidates pick?
Speculate.
Who should they pick? Who'd be great? Who'd be bad? Can they bring states? Can they not? I mean, let me throw out a couple of thoughts. I mean, one is I normally think that sort of, you know, the demographic pander, whether it's, you know, Lieberman as a Jew or Geraldine Farrar as a woman, is generally a sort of, you know, doesn't really get you much. I do think McCain is in bad enough straits. I mean, he's not that far down the polls, but I think it's, you know, I think he needs a boost and needs people to take a new look at him. I do think, you know, if there was a way for him to pick a woman, you know, I think it would do him a lot of good.
Who's your woman of choice?
Well, my woman of choice, which will be laughed at, I think, by you and certainly by anyone else I've floated it as totally ridiculous and unrealistic, is Olympia Snowe. I mean, she's spent a long time in the House of Representatives.
I don't know anything bad about her.
She's the senior senator from Maine. Well, I think a lot of polls will say she's just too liberal. She's too pro-choice for the Republican Party. That, you know, the conservatives will never buy it. He can't even put her name before the convention. But I don't know. It seems to me she can say, "Look, I'm pro-choice, but the president's not, and those are his wishes." And you know, I think she also adds to the experience argument. She's been on armed services a long time. Her husband was governor of Maine. Not that that's a presidential credential, but she has great Republican bona fides. She's very close to the Bushes. She was in the same House class as Trent Lott, and you know, has great ties with conservatives, even if she herself is a New England moderate. And I think she's not getting any mention, but she's the Matt Cooper pick.
Let's mention her. Nice.
You
drove this whole. I thought you were going to say Carly Fiorina. You drove this whole wave of.
Well,
Carly
you know,
Fiorina.
I did.
Are you backing off it? What's going on?
Well, I never really thought it would happen. I just thought there's just, you know, I just don't see how you can take an ousted CEO and make her the veep.
Well,
I mean, if it had been I mean, maybe you could make a case for Meg Whitman, you know, the former head of eBay, who's a big McCain backer, who had backed Mitt Romney in the primaries.
And who knows?
But I think for Carly, when she gets tossed out, I mean,
yeah, it wasn't a positive. The HP story under her is.
It's just not really I mean, I think she has a sort of longer explanation of that she did some good things, but that's not going to wash, I think, in a campaign. And so, you know, who are you left with? They don't have them. You know, Liddy Dole is too old, frankly. I don't know if Kate Bailey Hutchison would be a great candidate, the senior senator from Texas. And then there aren't that many GOP women in the House. So
Sandy Rice doesn't want to do it.
Well, I mean, that's.
I mean, I don't know. Heather Wilson. I mean, if you do, I mean, Mondale reached. You know, I guess the story is wanted a more high-profile woman than Feinstein. That didn't work out, and then just sort of reached into the House and picked this obscure New York congresswoman.
Right. No, he picked the Dan Quayle of women Democrats, and
so maybe I mean, you know, what about like a Heather Wilson, right?
Well, Heather Wilson's not crazy. I mean, she's for people who don't know her, she's in New Mexico congressperson. She's had a tough seat to battle for down there. She's a former Air Force officer. I think she was in the Bush 1 NSC. And you know, she's moderate. She's pro-choice. She's an impressive figure. You know, it's not a crazy pick. You know, But if you're going to make the case for a sort of big experience matters.
Right, she's Barack Obama is the problem, right?
Yeah, she's a little more weighted than Barack, but less than someone else. So,
right.
Other than that,
there aren't a lot of female veterans in their 60s and 70s.
Right. I tend to think, and maybe you'll disagree, that McCain in the end is going to make it a very personal choice. There'll probably be someone he's personally very close to. A Tom Ridge,
Yeah, Tom Ridge, seems like a pretty, I think what you were saying before, right? Either he angers the conservatives or he, even worse, doesn't anger the conservatives, right?
Right. No, I think at this point,
not on the right,
why
it's
not?
The middle.
I think why not? And I think, making...
Because he's at risk of losing, this whole independent brand. He isn't dominating independent votes the way he would sort of need to with Obama.
Now, do you think there's any plausibility to Lieberman?
Sure, right?
I think it's a bold move. It makes the experience case and the war case and the bipartisan case. I don't know if it actually gets you any electoral votes.
No, Lieberman is actually still reasonably popular in Connecticut, despite what you read on the internet.
Right.
He's, and I think he's popular nationally with Democrats.
Right. No, I don't know about with Democrats, but I think independent. I don't think he has a bad rep, outside the, Democratic primary voters.
Although then you're really running on Iraq. Then it is the all-war ticket.
Yeah, right. No, you're definitely making a case for war. Now, one name I heard, which was another person from Maine, which was very interesting to me, was Bill Cohen, who had been senator from Maine, congressman from Maine, Secretary of Defense in the second Clinton term. He's pro-life. His wife is African-American broadcaster. And he's a very old friend of John McCain's. That he was in McCain's
Is he Jewish?
party.
He's Jewish, right?
No, he's not. And
he's not Jewish.
It's like a Goldwater thing. It's a Goldwater thing. The grandfather was Jewish, right. And I don't think he was bar mitzvahed and had a slightly ambiguous upbringing. So you get the benefits of a Cohen without the right.
Without the worries that he's the Antichrist.
Right, without the worries he's the Antichrist. I think it's a Republican operative from another campaign. Presidential campaign had mentioned it to me, and I think it's kind of a smart, because it does, if you believe that John McCain really needs a personal bond with whoever he picks more than other politicians would, that's a fairly compelling argument.
And Obama?
Well, you're the man following him day to day. What does your gut tell you? Is Hillary in play, or is this all? Or was
I really think she's not. They've done nothing to signal that she is, and they haven't been running their campaign like they actually think that her voters are in play. They've been running to the middle, not the left. Although he is, certainly doing the work to win women back. But the case he made against her for 2 years was she's divisive. She can't win the general election because independents hate her, and it's kind of true, and it's like a central reason not to pick her as vice president. So unless he really doesn't believe that.
I tend to think you're right, and I should add here, as I often do to my wife, was a big advisor to Hillary Clinton. But that said, I do think when you go to a convention and you got 2,000 delegates there who are, with Clinton, it does create a kind of energy. Now, I know you picked the veep in advance of Denver, but still, it does create a kind of dynamic where it's hard to go in front of that many people and say, hey,
Yeah, sorry, guys.
I picked Joe Schmo. I can't think of anyone actually coming that close, and it
would be this incredible media juggernaut. John McCain just wouldn't appear on television for the rest of the cycle. It would just be because this odd couple thing. Obama's motto is no drama, and as a result, it can be kind of boring to cover. But introduce Hillary and her husband. It's just
it's a menage a trois.
They would just dominate the spotlight. But for the same reason, I can't imagine he would want her in the White House with him.
Right. But I tend to think it won't happen, but it's still, I think, the great.
It would just take
great guessing game, and I think at some point it would behoove them to at least feign interest. It seems to me slightly insulting to someone who got came within a hair of. Well, not a hair, but came awfully close to taking the nomination to not even, really take it pretty seriously.
Yeah.
But, so after that, I guess Obama has his own dilemmas. If you're running as a Washington outsider, can you pick some old graybeard
I think
senator?
Daschle would probably be his instinct, in terms of club.
Right.
Daschle is not a registered lobbyist, but is a lobbyist in the sort of common sense that he
And
works.
his wife is.
And his wife is a registered lobbyist.
And
he lost South Dakota just now for Obama.
yeah, he couldn't pull in South Dakota. I don't think he's a very compelling figure. I personally think he's a very weak, majority leader during his tenure. His decision to sort of, not really fight Bush on the war, but to really draw the line in the sand on union work rules for the Department of Homeland Security proved to be a disaster for the 2002 election.
Yeah.
I just think he's not a great pol, a nice man, not a great pol. I think the veterans of the campaign, Dodd and Biden, are getting some interest because they're good in the classic Veep sense of being good attackers.
But you probably knocked Dodd out with your story about his having received a loan from a
right. Well, my magazine Condé Nast portfolio, did find out that Dodd had, along with some other senators, had gotten preferential loans from one of the big subprime lenders, Countrywide Mortgage. So that's probably disqualifying in and of itself. Biden was very. I don't know if you saw, Meet the Press on Sunday. Biden was very good.
Biden on the attack was really quite good. He's a really happy attacker, and he kind of he's able to jump through the screen in a way a lot of these guys aren't on TV.
Yeah, no, I think
he's very compelling.
I think he is, but the question is, I guess, 35 years in the Senate.
Yeah.
He was Barack Obama. He was a 29-year-old senator in 1972.
He's also a huge ally of the credit card industry, which would be.
Well, that's a good point.
Come up.
If you're the senator from Delaware, you're going to be a banking slave to some degree, and that's a good point. What about another?
I guess the plus of Biden, which also applies to other people, is that, as somebody put it kind of crudely to me, Obama should pick a racist. And Biden, is not a racist. And in fact, Obama publicly when Biden had said some off-color stuff in Obama debate, kind of unprompted, came out and forgave Joe Biden and testified on his behalf, and thus, by extension, on behalf of all white people, which is, in a way, part of Obama's shtick, is this, or of his narrative, is this sort of racial forgiveness and reconciliation.
Absolution.
And so, there would be, and Obama is very narrative, and he's very kind of driven by narrative and kind of focused on it, and the closing of that circle. Biden would be great. Jim Webb, for that reason, would be better. He's not just, he's a friend of he's somebody who's really thought a lot about and given speeches about the greatness of the Confederacy. And so to have him...
Plus he's got this, I don't know if you want to call it a misogynist streak, that's probably unfair, but when you've opposed, women in the military, you're gonna, I think Webb would have been perfect for Hillary.
Yeah,
Hillary.
The fact that he, not that recently, but he defended the soldiers who were in trouble in the tailhook scandal. Before that, he had bad things to say about women in the military, although he's sort of long since recanted. But he also doesn't, I on my blog linked that story, and his office was really upset that they said he's not running for anything. Why are you putting this link to this old story on your website? Which just made me think he actually doesn't want the attention, because
he's also not he's not an energetic enough guy. He's a relatively young guy in his early 60s, but he's known as a fairly lazy campaigner, and I don't think he's going to really go out there if Obama did pick him. So
he's perfect. He's sort of the perfect on paper candidate. I don't know.
So he's got a lot to come in.
There's not an obvious choice. Is it like Sam? There's these sort of graybeards who are always floated.
I don't know how you can pick someone close to 70 years old like Sam Nunn. One graybeard I've thought of and written about is Bill Bradley. It'd certainly be the tallest ticket ever.
The Barack Obama of his day.
Right. They got the racial reconciliation has been a big theme of Bradley's his whole life, and he was an early Obama supporter, and he's been out of politics long enough that he's not part of the current problem. But that said, I think in terms of being erudite, Adlai Stevenson-like, pious,
Doubles down.
You're doubling down on some of Obama's less saleable features. So I guess I wonder whether you think he will double down on inexperience and not care about having someone who's
I think
whether he goes with a
youth and
Tim
energy,
Kaine
right?
or something.
Tim Kaine, who looks younger than he is,
Right.
or
you just say it doesn't matter how long you've been in Washington, and
right.
you pick Sebelius.
I've been in
you
Washington long enough to know that Washington needs to change. I think that's what you said.
Right. And you just don't, and you take your message seriously, and you pick someone like Sebelius or Kaine.
And my instinct is that they're so about message. They're not about. That's my instinct. That they would do something like that. I mean, I don't know. But then who are the top contenders? There's not nobody jumps out. I mean, Kaine is good but young and looks young and Sebelius is great on paper, has been less effective in her kind of public appearances. So she seems to be campaigning for it a bit. She gave some speech when she was referring to herself as an Ohio girl.
Right. Well, her father was governor, so
Yeah.
she's got some claim. But he was governor decades ago, so I don't think it's really going to win any votes out.
And he's from Kansas, and his family's from Kansas, so there is this. Nice
what if you did Bob Casey? If you make the case that experience in Washington doesn't matter, so
right.
you take a guy who's been in the Senate even less time than Barack. I don't know.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have somebody with some kind of national security something, right? Or maybe not. I mean, maybe that just highlights Obama's lack thereof.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a bold argument, and you could go Colin Powell. You could just double down on race and.
Yeah, you could actually.
Because I think a lot of people think there will be a Powell endorsement of Obama before this is.
Yeah,
over.
Powell has said nice things about him, and in a weird way, that would be. There's a sort of power to that, right? It would be like, we really don't think you're racist. That would be the statement.
Like, we dare you.
Yeah, and
dare.
you know what? We don't think you're racist. Like, we don't think we need to apologize for this to you voters, and
It
that's
also
sort of
would
a compelling, optimistic statement to make.
Right. I mean, you would have to sort of make the case that I picked this guy who didn't speak out against the war, even though he had reservations.
That's another qualification. I mean, Ted Strickland looked very good because, one of the boxes you think you have to check is opposing the war.
Right.
Because that's the center of Obama's judgment argument. And pretty soon, we're Xing all these people off. It's a complicated.
Right. It's a tough call to make for him, but what is your sense of the process? I mean, are they going to, parade people out to Chicago? Is it all going to be sotto voce? And who's actually running it now that Jim Johnson, the former head of Fannie Mae, had to drop out of heading being one of the three panelists on the search
I wish
committee?
I knew. They're so buttoned down. I don't know. I mean, I only know what I read, basically. And basically, I think they've been very good at keeping secrets, and this is the biggest secret of the next couple months, and I suspect they'll be pretty good at keeping it.
Right.
So, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
So,
do you think, just on the personal front, do you think Obama needs to feel personally, close to the person, or is he willing to take someone he's, maybe is just not?
I think, the one thing that I would imagine, when he was forming that campaign, the thing he told his staff, his aides, was that he wanted no drama, and they went and they did not select kind of dramatic personalities, stars, people who, that was sort of the goal, and that was their little signs on all their desks early on that said no drama. So I think, I think he's going to err on the side of boring. That's my guess.
Yeah. Okay, well, that makes sense. All right, well, thanks.
Fun talking to you. Have a nice dinner.
Okay, thanks, Ben. You too. Bye-bye.
Take care.